Hello! It's been a while. Thanks to so many of you, probably, and probably some other people who don't watch the channel. Sons of Comtech. The Sons of Comtech Kickstarter was, I would say, reasonably successful. And I mean very successful because we got to make the book. And it looks like this. It's done. It's incredibly beautiful. I'll do another video on this soon, properly at some point. I'll show you this properly. But anyway, it's done. If you ordered it via the Kickstarter crowdfund, you should by now have it, unless you are one of 2 remaining recipients in Canada, where the combination of the busy holiday period and a recently ended postal strike means that things are still a bit haphazard. But apart from the 2 of you, and you know, I'm sure who you are, everyone should be currently enjoying the full benefits of paperback contemporance. That's one piece of news. The other piece of news is I am not currently in Japan. And the reason I'm not currently in Japan is because Japan is over. I don't mean the country altogether from everyone's point of view. I just mean for me, and also not even really for me. I love Japan. You know, it's I literally studied Japan at university. It is my actual field of expertise, sort of. But I have finished my life in Japan. That's big news, isn't it? I lived there just now consecutively for about 12 years and a few more years on top of that, so about 15 years in total. There are a lot of reasons, obviously, that I have left, because you don't just, sort of upturn your life like that. The long and short of it is I just I felt for a few years like my life in Japan wasn't moving me forward, and it wasn't gonna be moving me forward in the foreseeable or imaginable future. So for a while now I've been thinking it was time for a change. Now, where are we? As you can also tell though from my statically charged hair, it's winter, so I'm not back in Australia, am I? So, where the fuck am I? What's this all about? Where are the nice sound-absorbing panels on the wall? Why is the audio thus so bad? What's going on here? Well, stick around and find out. Hey, it's YouTube. We're on fucking YouTube. Hey, boom, boom, boom. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It's content. More content. So, where am I? What am I doing? Well, I'm in a graveyard, sitting on a bench. As I've told you, and as you can probably clearly see, it's winter. That's one clue. I'll give you some more clues. I am in Europe for the first time. I've been to Korea before, so it's not my first time on this continent, on the continent of Eurasia. Don't fuck with me about this. I'm in a city with a lot of old, beautiful brick, particularly red brick buildings, which is a bit of a clue if you know your historical European architecture, which I don't. A lot of Japanese people, by the way, would be swooning at all of this red brick everywhere. Well, not swooning. They'd be in the corner of the screen going, eh. But that's the cultural equivalent of swooning. Yeah, but let's put a pin in that another time. Let's talk about the history of red brick in Japan. That's a whole thing. In this city, there are You may have noticed a lot of buses, a lot of cycling infrastructure, which is great. It's very pretty, it's very European. If you walk around downtown here, the footpaths are littered with 3 things. Number 1, cigarette butts. Number 2, what looks like, but probably isn't, chewing gum. Let's put a pin in that one too. That's a whole thing. And number 3, what I believe the Americans call loogies. There are loogies about. Watch out for loogies. People spit here. It's gross. In this city where I am, going for a stroll downtown on New Year's Eve looks like this. And in this city, depending on what B-roll I've cut in, you may have noticed all the signs are written in Swedish, and most of the people are speaking Swedish. So that's a big clue, isn't it? Have you guessed? Some of you, I mean, if it's possible to have guessed from that. I'm in the city of Malmö. In Sweden, obviously. Malmö is in the very south of Sweden, in a region called Skåne, and it's closer, in fact, to Copenhagen in Denmark than any other major metropolitan center in Sweden. In fact, it's just across the bridge from Copenhagen. And when I say the bridge, I mean the bridge. If you remember that classic, old-ish, miserable, compelling, wonderful crime, Scandi crime drama, Breon, the bridge. It's that bridge. Yes, it's that bridge. That's where I am. I'm in Scandi crime drama country. Look at the cloudy sky. Look at the dead, lifeless trees. Malmö is lovely. It's not a particularly globally famous city. So why was this my first choice? Why is this my first stop ever in Europe? Well, do you remember webcomics? Good webcomics, proper webcomics from back in the early aughts. Do you remember Egra, Hilarity Comics? Do you remember, what's another one? Raymondo Person. Do you remember those? Do you remember? If you don't, that's a huge relief to me. Do you remember, though, a webcomic called Anders Loves Maria, or Anders Loves Maria? Of course you do. Of course you do. Who wouldn't remember that compelling, Scandi, non-crime drama, unless you count heartbreak and romantic betrayals as a crime, which, come to think of it, don't you though? Don't you? Anyway, Anders Loves Maria. Do you remember all of the good chums you made back then on the internet in the mid to late aughts because of webcomics? Do you remember all of your fellow cartoonists, your fellow web cartoonists around the world that you've stayed in touch with in all the years since then? Do you remember them? Do you remember those? Of course you do. Do you remember that the author of Anders Loves Maria was a woman called Rene Engström? She is one of the webcomics friends from way back when, who has remained not merely a chum, but a bosom chum. A chum right in the buzzes. Her name's actually Rene. It's spelled R-E-N-E. If you've been calling her Rene this whole time, right, like I have, over nearly 2 decades of friendship, if you've been calling her Rene, well, she told me that's okay, because no one gets her name right. And also, I've been calling her that for so long now, she's used to it, and it would be weird if I started calling her Rene, even though Rene is actually her name. But she's instructed me, she's informed me that her preference would be that I stick with Rene. I'm going to take the liberty of extending that to you. If you've up here, if she's been Rene Engström to you for this long, you can probably keep at that if you want. But it is Rene, which is a unique name. It's a name that was made up just for her, but when she was given that name, they decided, let's spell it the same as a name that already exists with different distinct pronunciations in probably a few languages, but none of those pronunciations is Rene. That's what they've decided. Anyway, they gave her that gift. What the hell was I talking about? Webcomics. Webcomics. In fact, back then, around 2008, I had been living in Japan for the first time on a working holiday visa, but that had now, in 2008, expired. But by then I was employed, as you may remember, by the video game website Egra.com. And I could work remotely. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun? Wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be very modern and cosmopolitan to travel the world for a while? Live out of a suitcase for a while, perhaps indefinitely. And while doing so, maybe meet some internet friends, some webcomics friends, right? So I stayed in Shizuoka a little while longer. I stayed in Seoul maybe a couple of times. I stayed in Tokyo. And I made some tentative plans to travel to Europe for the first time, way back when, and visit Rene in her home country of Sweden. Sweden! ABBA! Ace of Base! Vikings! IKEA! Tell me all of that wouldn't Sweden the deal. Sweden. Fuck you.
Här kommer Pippi Långstrump, tjolahopp, tjolahej, tjolahopp, dansa.
So, in late 2008, I was staying in Tokyo, and then, around about October, you might remember, there was a thing which at the time they called the GFC, the Global Financial Crisis. Global, that means America was in trouble. But it did have impacts, around about the place. One thing that happened was that the bottom completely fell out of internet advertising. That went and so an internet startup website company that was just finding its feet, a website company like Eager, for example, that also went and so I sadly had to say goodbye to that romantic idea of being a digital, what's the term, a digital vagrant. A digital bum, I think that's what they're called. You see them, the digital bums, sitting around in cafes, looking cool. Digital bums, I think that's what they're called. Digital bums. So I did not go to Sweden. In January 2009, I went back to Australia to kind of regroup. But, by myself, but regroup, sort of mentally regroup and rethink and reevaluate what I was going to do with my life next. I ended up going back to university for the third time, but for the first time to actually complete a degree. I went to Monash and I got a degree in Japanese studies, mostly on Japanese history, and I then went back to Japan on the JET program, and I did that for a couple of years, and I ended up staying in Japan for 12 years. But as I mentioned at the start of the video, that phase of my life is now over. So the story has kind of come full circle a bit, hasn't it? That adds a bit of a narrative thread, a bit of a satisfying narrative arc to this YouTube vlog ramble, doesn't it? You like that, don't you? You like a bit of a narrative thread to keep you watching, don't you? Your YouTube audience, your algorithm, Anyway, on that note, a few years ago, I was already thinking seriously about leaving Japan and making some sort of big changes in my life, and I was talking that over with some close friends, and in mid-August 2024 I was having a video call with Rene, and I was saying to her the same kind of stuff I was saying to everyone. I'm thinking about leaving Japan. I'd like to be able to do more writing, prose writing, script writing, dialogue writing, just creative writing, and I would also like to work in game dev. I've always wanted to make video games. I was always trying to find some kind of path into that. And in fact, I did make a video game once. Do you remember? Back in 2006? Some of you might remember that. Don't worry if you don't know about that. It wasn't a great game, but it was interesting. So I've always wanted to sort of do game dev, and I was thinking it'd be great to, somehow move sideways into doing writing for games or something like that somehow, or use that as a way to get into, getting back into designing games somehow. Anyway, Rene said, I'd like to do something like that too, so why don't we start a project together? And long story short, I said, yeah, that sounds fun, let's do it. So we started having some online meetings semi-regularly, and we started working on a game. And that has been one of my current, as usual, kind of on and off projects for the past, I want to say several months, but actually I guess a good couple of years by now. And, maybe not a couple of years, but a year and a half? Anyway, on and off. Let me tell you a little bit about it. We've been working on mostly just world building and writing and developing the characters and so on, and planning out the story and the kind of basic game loop that's gonna sort of the story will be built on. It's gonna be a visual novel, sort of, basically a visual novel. It is both a dating sim and a murder mystery crime-solving game. Why not? Why not both? I really want to tell you about the story of the game and the characters, and especially the title. I really want to tell you the title of the game, but maybe we can save that for the next video or something. As I said, we were working online together, writing, plotting. Rene had started building a kind of skeleton for the game in Unity. I can't remember if I've mentioned it yet. I mentioned that I am currently in Malmö in Sweden. If I haven't mentioned it yet, or if you haven't been able to figure it out, that's where Rene lives. Rene lives in Malmö and has done for quite a few years now. And I mentioned about Malmö, didn't I? I said Malmö is in a region called Skåne, and I said it's close to Copenhagen, and I said there's lots of red brick buildings and people spit in the street. Not everybody, but more than zero. Gosh, ugh. What I didn't mention, which is an interesting thing about Malmö, is that over the past, several years, Malmö has become kind of a game development hub in Sweden and indeed Europe, and I guess the world. There are so many game development studios and publishers based in Malmö, and of course small studios and indies work here. There's kind of a community. There's been so much kind of game dev congealment here that there are also now NPOs and other organizations and funding bodies that have kind of appeared to support this promising local creative industry. Because that's the sort of thing that can happen in a country like Sweden. Sweden! Roxette, lakes, fika, social welfare, Spotify.
Här kommer Pippi Långstrump, här kommer faktiskt jag.
One such game dev supporting org here in Malmö is called DevHub, and they have a place called Game Habitat. No, okay, sorry. I keep getting these mixed up. The organization is called Game Habitat, and the place that they run is called DevHub. I do keep getting these names mixed up. I feel like it's not completely my fault. Don't you think that hub sounds like what you would call an organization? Don't you think that habitat sounds like a place? Isn't that a place, a habitat? Also, where are Game Habitat's offices, whence Game Habitat operates, you might ask? Well, of course, they're in DevHub, aren't they? If you go to DevHub, you know what you'll see? You'll see a big sign saying Game Habitat, and then in little letters next to that you can barely notice, DevHub. I'm just saying, I feel like there's a branding issue here, there's confusion here waiting to happen. I feel like I can't be blamed for that. I won't be blamed for that. I will keep mixing them up. And you know what? I don't apologize. If I apologized already, I retract that apology. Sort your shit out, Game Habitat. Dev Happy Baba Boo. And what that is a big, beautiful, old heritage building. I don't know if it's technically heritage, but it's a heritage building. It's an old factory because Malmö is traditionally an industrial town. It's made of brick and polished stone. It's really beautiful. And it has been refurbished and repurposed multiple times over the years. And currently, it has been repurposed to be a game dev co-working and office space. It's maybe five or six floors high, and it's shared by studios, big and small, maybe medium and small, really. But yeah, publishers, solo devs, other support organizations, you name it, anything sort of game dev related or even adjacent. And if you work in that realm, in the vicinity of game dev, you can get in touch with Game Habitat and rent a big office or a small office or a desk. And bam, now you have neighbors, now you have a community. And they have a sauna also. Now you have a sauna. Sweden, Robin, meatballs, shared parental leave, Woody Piano Shack. You know, Woody Piano Shack. He's a YouTuber. He does music. You know, Woody Piano. He's good. He's nice. Seems nice. Woody Piano Shack. Celsius. That's another one. Anders Celsius was a Swede. That was his name. He was Mr. Celsius. And he invented the Celsius system for, you know, the scale of measuring temperature. That's from Sweden. That's a Swedish thing. Did you know that? That's a Swedish fact for you. Anyway, back once again to my life story. In March 2025, Rene, as we were working on this project, she sent me an email to let me know about not just Game Habitat, but specifically Game Habitat's guest office. It is funded by the city of Malmö and another org called Invest in Skåne. It's a guest office within Game Habitat. It's called the Guest Office. And it is available to game devs, especially, as you can imagine, from other cities, other regions, other countries, even, who would like to visit Malmö and see what the local industry is like, who would like to, you know, maybe try out game dev generally. What kind of person could that be? I wonder where this story is going. Anyway, it's available for such people, for such small indies and studios or whatever, to use completely free of charge. No strings attached for up to 3 months. You can just come to Game Habitat, where you're surrounded by game devs and game dev, just as a notion. It's in the air all around. Rene pointed that out to me and said, hey, how about this? Right? Seems like a good fit, seems like a thing that we could do, you know. You could come here in person, finally, right? After all these years, you could come to Malmö, check out game dev, check out Malmö, check out Sweden, see if you like it. Have an opportunity to stay for a little while, see what happens, right? So I emailed Game Habitat about it, and I said, so hey, how about that guest office? What's the deal? Can I use it? You know, what is what I wrote. They said, yes, you can come and use the guest office. What dates are good for you? We had an online chat about it. We had a video call. They were very nice. I like to think we hit it off. And that was it. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, Anthony Albanese, easy breezy, beautiful cover girl, not sleazy nor queasy. Praise Jeezy. Oh no, I think I've got fleazy. Everything's better down where it's wetter, under the seasy. Your pimples are greasy and full of diseasey. Merry Creasy and a Happy New Yeezy. Anyway, can you guess where this story is going? We're here at the punchline. Can you guess? Let me just reiterate, let me just go over again. Where am I? We asked at the beginning of the video. Where are you, Patrick? You asked me, or I, told you to ask me, and here we are. Can you guess the answer to that initial question? Can you though? Do you know? Have you guessed it? What could the answer be? Where am I? What is this place? What was that? What? Huh? That's right. This is it. This is the guest office. This is it. This is the guest office. Hey. Oh, you guessed it. We're doing Gamedev. I wrapped up my life in Japan, which is cutting a very long story very short. I arrived in Malmö on December 18th. I met Rene for the first time in person, face to face, after like 18 years, I think, of friendship. And a couple of days later, they let us into the game habitat building. A while ago, while everyone was on Christmas holiday over late December, early January, I took some footage of the building. So if I have time, I'll try and edit that together for you into a little tour video sometime soon. So, me and Rene Engström, a pair of recovered web cartoonists from the old internet, are in this office until about mid-March, trying to make a funny and dramatic narrative video game for you all to enjoy. And it's already been about a month, so it's not a lot of time. What are we hoping to have done by mid-March, do you think, realistically?
Realistically, not the entire game.
No.
But hopefully, I planned and hope that we can at least complete a demo of the game. So,
not like a Steam demo, but a functioning...
No, like a functioning give us money demo.
Right.
To make this game.
Something we can show to publishers or funding organizations or that sort of thing.
Yeah. Cool. Right now I'm sitting a lot with the code for the game, and Patrick is working a lot on the world building at the moment.
Yeah. Renee's doing the real work at the moment.
Nah. You will love it. It is very funny and weird, and it perfectly combines our two different types of weirdness.
Yes. Yes, we are both weirdos, but with different specific skills we've developed within that character class.
Exactly.
Yeah. As Rene mentioned, we're going to try and get some sort of funding somehow, by some means, to continue working on the game at the end of all this. Because I can tell you, in my own personal experience in my creative, in inverted commas, career, when I get paid, shit gets made. And you know that is divine truth, because it fucking rhymes, and that's how it works. That's what I learned at church. When art is just a hobby, that's nice and everything, but whether a project of even quite limited scope and ambition gets finished or not is usually a bit of a coin flip. Often projects don't get finished, life gets in the way, that's how it is. I am already at peace with the fact that this game we're working on might fall into that pile, it might not get finished. Obviously, I really hope it does. I also hope that you hope that it does. If you're interested to know how this all goes, please stay tuned and follow along, of course. As for me personally, in my personal life, what I'm hoping for or expecting or wondering about at the end of this a 3-month sort of residency at Game Habitat. I got to tell you, I really like Sweden. I really like Malmö. If I can manage to get a job here, like a proper job, a real job, I'd like to stay and live. That's what I do. I live places. The rest of you are just tourists in this world. Otherwise, I'll probably just have to, not unwillingly, go back to Australia and probably Melbourne. I mean, I say not unwillingly because I want to see all my friends and everything. I do feel like it might be a bit of a step back in terms of doing new things with my life and, the availability of opportunities that are right for me. But who knows, maybe back in Australia, back in Melbourne, I can find some way to continue with Gamedev broadly and this project specifically. We will see. That's all really. I hope you enjoyed this sort of blog video or blidio. It's not really meant to be a kind of formal project announcement or anything like that. I'm just letting you know what I have been and am and will be up to. Do stay tuned, of course, if you are intrigued. As always, though, I have enjoyed making this video. You've enjoyed watching it, but that doesn't make us friends. Goodbye. From Sweden, Volvo, smorgasbord, Donald Duck on TV at Christmas, pick and mix candy in the supermarket, the Swedish chef, from the Muppets, the Swedish chef, Swedish. Thanks for watching.
Där bor ju Pippi långt